What I'm about to tell you happened to me when I worked on a transatlantic cargo ship for about 2 years. We'd move containers from the US to Europe and back, mostly goods heading from New Jersey to Rotterdam. The money was good, and the crew was small enough that everyone kind of stayed in their lane. You pretty much just worked, slept, and did your shifts while praying the time would fly by. Nothing major had ever really happened until this one particular voyage. We were about 7 days out at sea with no scheduled port stops. We were heading straight across open water with a few thousand metal containers bolted down on the deck, and about 22 crew spread across 3 shifts. I was on the midnight to 4 a.m. watch rotation, which was boring as hell. I would mostly just walk the halls, check engine temps, listen for leaks or power surges, and log anything unusual. The ship was built with 4 main levels: the top deck, the galley and crew cabins, engine and machinery deck, and then below that was the hold. No one went down to the hold unless absolutely necessary. It wasn't forbidden or anything like that, just uncomfortable and dark, stacked tight with support systems and overflow cargo. The noise down there was really loud and constant. So anyway, it was around halfway through my 3rd night shift when I first heard something that sounded unusual. I'd just finished checking the diesel generators when I heard a metal clanging sound like a piece of pipe being hit against something, and it sounded like it was below me somewhere. I figured something must have come loose in the hold, maybe one of the pressure braces on a container frame. I stopped for a moment, logged it, and then went back to the bridge and told the senior engineer on the morning shift to check it when we hit daylight. When the next evening rolled around, I decided to check the report he did, but was sort of shocked to see nothing was listed. No loose braces, no movement of any kind. I just stared at the report and thought about it for a bit, wondering what I heard. But after a little while, I figured everything had to be all good, and I left it at that. A couple more days passed, and everything was pretty much going how it should. I was doing my regular shift duties and was locked in getting a lot done when that same sound caught me off guard again, right next to where I heard it last time. I waited a bit longer to keep listening, and it seemed more persistent and louder. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not usually the type to go looking for strange sounds, but my job requires me to report these types of occurrences because even if they seem like nothing major, the last place you want something going wrong is out at sea. So I go get a torch and crowbar to take with me. And before you think that's a bit much, taking a crowbar, it's actually pretty normal in my job. You always bring something heavy because pipes stick, latches rust, and if you slip on an oily step, you want to catch yourself with something. Once I was sorted, I went down level by level until I hit the stairwell that dropped into the hold, which was pitch black. The second I stepped onto the metal floor down there, I felt the temperature change. The air was really cold, and I looked around for a bit, but noticed the clanging sound had stopped again. I thought I better walk between the stacks of containers, one at a time, and shine my torch around to make sure I had a good look. And after not finding anything, I turned the corner near one of the backup generators and stopped dead. I pointed my torch and could see a plate of food on the ground. It looked cold and half-eaten, and at the time, the only explanation I had was someone must have taken rice and beans from the galley and brought it all the way down here. I kept searching around the area and also noticed some bedding stuff like an old crew blanket folded and pushed into the corner like a makeshift pillow. Seeing this was the weirdest feeling because no one was meant to be sleeping or eating down here, so I had no choice but to head back up and file a report and let the crew know. I got my report done, and once a few of the senior crew members realized what was going on, they had us do a full search of the ship because they kept saying we might have a stowaway on board, which made me feel uneasy, especially knowing pirates target ships like this. The full search went on for hours. Every single part of the ship seemed to have been searched, even multiple times in some areas, but nothing or anyone was found. We ended up basically having to go back to regular shift duties, but were all told to be extra cautious, and some of our main security protocols like radio check-ins were more frequent. Things seem to go a bit slower now, and I think it's because I felt like I was waiting for something to happen or run into someone dangerous that shouldn't be here. It hadn't even been 24 hours since my last shift, and I was sitting in the hallway near the communications panel when I heard footsteps above me. They were slow, heavy, and sounded like someone pacing. I thought maybe someone was walking the deck, so I went up to see what was going on. But when I reached the top, I couldn't see anyone. I stared around for a while and then made my way back down to where I had been sitting, but couldn't shake a weird feeling like something strange was going on. Time went on and I didn't seem to notice anything else that was off until the following morning, when a new guy who was on his third trip with us came into the mess area looking pale. He sat down from me and said, "I just went to do the waterline inspection and someone was already there. They didn't talk or make any sound. Whoever it was just crouched next to the pipe with their head against the wall. And when I walked closer, they stood up and walked away like they didn't see me." I asked him what they looked like, and he said, "I don't know. I didn't get a good look at the face, but the coveralls they had on were not some of ours. They looked bleached and old." Hearing that brought back the weird feeling I had earlier, and I stared into space for a bit before I decided I should double-check the manifest because I know we were only supposed to have 22 crew members. Once I had the manifest, I went down the full list of names, bunk numbers, and departments. I also counted the meal sheets from the galley, and that's when I noticed 23 entries. I showed it to the senior officer, and he said it was probably a duplicate entry. I questioned that and suggested it could be the suspected stowaway we didn't find. But he said no one was found during the search and that every part of that ship gets locked securely. We had been making nice progress, and searching again would be time off our schedule that he didn't want to waste, and the subject was pretty much dropped. The rest of the voyage seemed to go pretty fast, surprisingly, and without much of anything strange happening. And before we knew it, and to the relief of many of the crew, we were docking at our destination. I followed my docking procedures and got on mostly with what I needed to, but before unloading and getting off, I walked the usual loop one last time. Everything was quiet in this part of the ship, and as I passed the main stairwell that leads up to the deck, I heard someone coming down it like they were in a hurry. I stood and waited for a second expecting to see a crewmate, but when the footsteps reached the bottom, no one was there. This really terrified me, and I went back to the mess room quickly and sat down. I stayed there until another crew member came by, and I gave them a brief description of what happened. They said, "Don't worry about it, man. Let's just get unloaded and out of here." I tried to put it to the back of my mind, but after unloading and against better judgment, I thought I better go check the hold one last time. When I got to the bottom and looked around, I couldn't see anything out of place or unusual, and I was just about to get out of there when I noticed a single boot print on top of the generator casing. It didn't look normal. The print was too small to be one of the men that crewed this ship, and it was facing the wall, which didn't even make sense how anyone could have been up there in that position. I got out of there and didn't even bother reporting it. I just got off the ship and moved on with life. And of course, naturally over the years, I have tried to come up with theories about who it was. But at the end of the day, it's a scary experience I won't forget, and is by far the scariest thing that ever happened to me on a ship.